Right, more than 5 decades ago, MAA Group was founded with the vision to transform the landscape of Malaysia's business sector. From its humble beginnings, the group has grown into a prominent player with diversified interests across manufacturing, financial services, and also more industries as well. But today, MAA Group continues to innovate and expand under the leadership of its Executive Chairman, Tunku Dato' Yaakob Khairap, remaining at the forefront of the industry, of course, in terms of development, also contributing to the Malaysia's economic growth and global competitiveness. Joining me right now is Tunku himself. Tunku, thank you so much for joining Niaga AWANI. Reflecting for the past 55 years or so, what are the most significant milestones for the MAA Group itself?
Okay. Well, if you know the history of MAA, MAA started off as an insurance company. Mainly in life insurance and non-life insurance. It was actually a spare license as part of the AIA Group. And in that sense, they kept the company small. Very small life insurance unit, very small general insurance unit. But since the acquisition of MAA by the MAA Group, or family group, in 1985, we embarked on the mission of growing the company. And so we did grow under MAA. We changed the name to Malaysian Insurance Alliance, and we grew very, very rapidly and very successfully. But that was 1985, was a long time ago. And about 10 years ago, we decided to diversify our business. The MAA Group decided to, and we realized that the insurance industry wasn't going to generate the profits that we wanted. Not so much profits, but in terms of the capital requirements was ever increasing. More and more money had to go in as paid up capital, which meant hardly any dividends. So as a yield, it wasn't really made any sense to be invested in the insurance industry. And we sold MAA Assurance 10 years ago. And 2 years later, we also sold our Takaful insurance business. But we did keep our Philippine insurance business, and sometime this year, we also sold that. Okay? So we're pretty much out of the insurance industry. So in our diversification strategy, we've expanded into several areas, one being financial services, in basically factoring invoices for industry, at the same time as credit services for companies. The other area we focus our attention in is also in education. In particular, mainly primary and secondary schools. We are the owners of St. John's International School, which does basically IGCSE and A-levels for a British curriculum for students. We also have opened recently in Kota Kinabalu, Imperium International School, mainly a secondary school, again doing IGCSE subjects. We have a tuition center called Kasturi Tuition, and we have one small college called, this is a tertiary, called Imperium International College. But going forward, on the education sector, we expect to open more and more schools. Now, the third area we're involved in is in hospitality. Hospitality in not the ownership of hotels, but in managing hotels. Okay? This unit is called Hospitality 360, and it runs right by the end of mid-next year, we will be running 10 hotels in Malaysia. At the same time, we also have a unit under that wing called Perfect Host, where we are also one of the largest Airbnb operators in the country. The industry, we don't call it Airbnb, the industry is actually called short-let. Okay? And we are very large in particular that area. And of course, the other area we're looking at is entertainment and lifestyle. And in this area, we've expanded, particularly in Sabah, where we've opened a chain of shop lot cinemas. Shop lot cinema is basically you rent eight shop lots and you open 6 cinema halls, each typically about 65 seats per hall, especially in rural areas where there's no cinemas. And part of our social community works, we also provide free shows for underprivileged children, things like that.
We'll talk about diversification because, of course, like you mentioned just now, you were in the financial services, education, hospitality and adventures as well. But a lot of companies out there, they also believe in having core business rather than diversification. But for MAA Group, how would you like people to know MAA Group right now? Because it's really different industries that you are venturing in.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's conglomerates tend to have a diversified portfolio, and investors, some people prefer conglomerates, to invest in conglomerates, but most people prefer to buy stocks in companies that focus in one particular industry. All right. So in our case, we are in effect a small conglomerate, but trying to nurture several industries with the hope that eventually, when the education unit matures, we will list that. Yeah. And when the hospitality unit matures, we will also list that. So we are more as a investment holding company. I like to think of like Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
And Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah. So I like to think of us as doing that, looking at new areas where there's growth. Definitely, I like the area of hospitality because tourism is one of Malaysia's core focus industries, and there is no significant real hotel management chain in Malaysia specializing in managing many hotels. Yeah. The Airbnb or short-let industry is also a growing industry, new industry, and many of the short-let operators are small-time operators. We are the largest organized short-let industry. So these are new growth areas, and deserve their own listing one day. Yeah. The education sector also is a growing area. As people expect to have higher and higher standards of education, and parents are prepared to pay for good quality education at a reasonable price, that is also an area of growth. Yeah. Okay, and I like that area of education. Of course, entertainment like cinemas is also growing, but in our case, rural areas has not been tapped. Yeah. So yes, we are in a sense a diversified group, but we're nurturing these businesses to eventually become specialist listed companies.
So what's the new industry or industries in the sense that are in the pipeline for MAA Group in the future?
Well, I mean, we're just going to, for now, I think we're a bit stretched in terms of management and in terms of time. So what we have now is going to be the core, maybe looking at some new industries in the medical sector. Is something we are studying, but have not made the call whether we are going to invest in that sector or not.
And the markets, is there any new markets that you are planning to tap into?
Yes, well, in particular, the opportunities to grow is basically in the education and the hospitality sector. In the hospitality sector, for right now, we are focusing just in Malaysia. But there's no reason why we can't eventually expand to managing hotels in Indonesia or Thailand or Vietnam. But on the education sector, there is a lot more activity, opportunity. We hope to open a new school in Malaysia, in KL, with a British brand school. I wouldn't name the name of the school yet, since we have not got Ministry of Education approval yet, but it is be a British branded international school in Malaysia. That same school has also given us the rights to open a similar school in northern Italy. And we're also looking to do that similar school in the UAE. So the education side will grow more internationally.
The education business is very interesting because you mentioned a lot about that. But how do you measure the success of this particular industry? Because it's quite, I mean, not so many industry players. I mean, it's not really the main industry focus for a lot of corporate companies. But for you, how do you measure the success of this industry?
I think the success of the industry will depend ultimately is if you can provide a good service for the parents and the students. If you do a good job, you'll see the number of students increasing. Right? And so my measure is the number of students. Whether you're operating in the lower band range, like in St. John's International School, which is a very, very affordable school, roughly about 22,000 ringgit a year to do your IGCSE, or to a more expensive, say, the UK brand that we're going to bring in, they'll be in the 80,000 ringgit a year brand. It's the number of students that you recruit is your measure. And of course, student retention.
Let's talk about the hospitality, because you mentioned you're not ruling out any possibilities of going into other markets, of maybe managing hotels in Indonesia and Thailand. But we've learned a lot from COVID-19, for instance. But how do you position yourself? But how do you see the hospitality industry in terms of the future of hospitality and the risk and the downside risk of the hospitality industry?
Yes. I think, yeah, COVID certainly did affect the hospitality industry, but it affected almost every industry in the world. Okay? Almost every industry was hit, except for the education.
Yeah.
Kids were still going to school, even though online, and parents were still paying school fees.
Yeah.
So I would say only the education side was okay. It did okay. The tourism industry, yes, it was affected. Fortunately, when they lifted the MCO, people started moving around again. So I don't think hopefully, inshallah, there won't be another COVID lockdown. I hope that the governments in the future, when you do come across another scenario like that, will find other ways to manage the contagion other than lockdown. Because the damage to many economies was severe.
Yeah.
And I think many countries like in Europe, where they are actually suffering today economically, was actually caused a lot because of the lockdowns. Yes, and that's an issue.
Yeah.
Now, on just maybe on the hospitality side, I also want to highlight that apart from us managing the hotels, we also carry branded products.
Right.
For instance, we are closely tied up with the Wyndham Group, and their brands are the Ramada, the Wyndham Grand, the Wyndham Garden. So, for instance, recently in Fraser's Hill, we launched a new hotel in Fraser's Hill called the Wyndham Garden Shazan. Okay, so that's a new brand in Fraser's Hill. We have Ramada Kuala Lumpur, we have Ramada Johor Bahru, we had Trinidad Putri Harbour in Johor Bahru as well, and we also have Shazan Hotel in Kuantan. And we're adding a few more, like in Malacca, there'll be the Lisbon Hotel, right on the water. So we're growing in terms of brands, some homegrown brands like Shazan and Trinidad, and international brands like the Wyndham Gardens, Wyndham Grand, and Ramada.
Yeah. Let's talk about a little bit about the financial services sector that you are in right now, in terms of its transformation with a lot of technology transforming into financial services. Now we'll talk about fintech, we'll talk about a lot of digital banking that's happening right now. But how has MAA or Group, adapted to these changes? Well,
we're still growing and still learning, but the main area of focus for MAA Group and the financial services sector is factoring of invoices of companies who go outside the bills. If you know what factoring is basically if I'm a supplier of, say, computers to a bank, I'll supply them with computers, I'll give them an invoice, the bank may pay me in 30 days. But if I need my money now, I can't wait 30 days, I would factor that bill and come to a company like, say, MAA, and get my money up front, maybe not all, maybe 80% first, so I can use that to run my business. And when the bank finally pays, they'll pay MAA, and MAA will pay whatever the difference is due to the supplier. That's called factoring of invoices. So an area that we want to focus on is the e-perolehan system. Right now, anybody who supplies equipment to the Malaysian government would go through the e-perolehan system, where it's an online system. All right? And by factoring these invoices, the supplier to the Malaysian government gets his money first, and through the e-perolehan system, eventually when the government does pay, through the electronic system, we will be paid, and then we'll settle the difference with the supplier. So in terms of technology, in that sense, the government itself has created this system that allows a convenient, efficient payments system to its suppliers, and we can play a role in helping improve the liquidity for those suppliers.
Last but not least, after 55 years from insurance into a diversified group right now, but what's your hope for the future for MAA?
Well, as you The issue that for MAA and the future and the past is this. The insurance industry was profitable.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, Tunku, why are you selling your profitable business?
Yeah.
Right? Because now you don't have any profits. You got rid of all your profits. But yes, we have sold our profitable business, but we sold it for a fair and good price. Okay? We basically did very well getting the price we got. So with that money, we now basically putting into new industries, hospitality, education, financing, entertainment. Now, like any new industry, it takes a few years before it becomes profitable. Like any business, hospitality, it took 2-3 years before it becomes profitable. A school, when I open a school, the first 3 years I will definitely lose money. Because as the number of students slowly fills up the class, but once it's full, like during COVID, it's very stable.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very, very stable. If I get a student coming in at standard 1, year 1, and he leaves after, I'd say, IGCSE at year 11, I've got him for 11 years.
Yeah.
You know, that means every year I only need to recruit 1/11th of my population. So it takes time, but when you got that portfolio, it matures, it's solid. So our challenge will be next couple of years, we will be reporting losses. We've expected that, which is why we raise a lot of money through the sale of our insurance companies, so we have the strength to suffer those years of losses, which we expect. So in the future, in the next 2-3 years, I hope that we will start seeing the P&L of the group improve and become very, very stable. So I'm investing now for the future.
All right. So good. Thank you so much for joining Lega AWANI this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.